She woke up after a 12-year silence, but the truth she carried would shatter an entire town. What she revealed about her children left everyone in tears. The last photo of the Bowens looked like a promise no one kept. Claire stood on the front steps, her hair pulled back, with her hands resting on the small shoulders of her children, Noah, 10, and Sophie, 7. Someone, likely a neighbor, snapped the picture, catching Claire mid-laugh, the kind of laugh that says, "Dinner's almost ready, and bedtime will be easy." 3 hours later, a county deputy found Claire face down in a ditch, one shoe missing, her hair matted with blood. The children were nowhere to be found. The call came in at 10:43 p.m. Deputy Linares arrived to find Claire still breathing, her pulse a greedy flutter under his fingers. He asked if she could hear him, and her lips trembled around a word that might have been a name before the sound vanished. The EMTs stabilized her and took her to St. Ambrose Hospital. By midnight, the house on Sycamore Street was a scene of low volume and high dread. The front door was ajar, the kitchen light was on, and 2 glasses of milk sweated rings on the table. The TV murmured cartoons in the den, and the children's belongings were scattered about, a silent testament to their sudden absence. Detective Maura Keene, Ruth to friends, arrived in boots still damp from a rain that hadn't decided to last. She moved slowly, noting the little things where the truth liked to sit, a faint line of grit on the hallway runner, as if something heavy had been dragged. A dog, Pip, trembling and unheard under Sophie's bed, and the crooked latch on the backyard shed. At 1:17 a.m., a patrol car found an old beige sedan with 2 flat tires near an abandoned outbuilding 5 miles from the house. In the headlights, a sun-bleached cooler and 2 burlap sacks cinched with twine sat on the ground. The deputy, with a toddler at home, felt an instinct to pause before opening them. He called Keene. Keene arrived, adjusted her gloves, and felt the way a case begins to tell you what it is before you have the words. She called the lab van, standing back to narrate the opening for the camera, because chain of custody is the difference between heartbreak and a trial. What was inside did not need gore to devastate. There were fibers consistent with children's clothing, a tiny star charm from a bracelet, a single blonde hair, and a dark stain that made the tech pause. A blue jacket lay folded under the cooler, as if someone had half-remembered decency, then left it in the dirt. By dawn, Claire Bowen's coma had a name: subdural hematoma, skull fracture. The neurologist said she might never wake. Back at Sycamore Street, neighbors gave statements. Mrs. Girardi saw a gray pickup. Mr. Lowry heard 2 sharp knocks. A teenager saw a man with a pit bull. The ex-husband, Daniel Cole, arrived repeating, "I didn't do this," until the words lost their meaning. A pawn shop owner told Keene about a man with hands like sandpaper who'd tried to sell a gold locket and smelled of solvent. The lab got fast results. The burlap had traces of hydraulic fluid and sawdust, not farm dust, and the twine was hardware store grade. The hair from the knot was a mitochondrial match to Sophie. The charm belonged to a bracelet her sister had given her. Keene said the thing detectives learn to say when they wish they didn't have to: prepare the family liaison. On day 2, the dog alerted along a creek bed. The ground was soft and mounded, but they found nothing definitive, only enough to know that someone had been busy there before. "This is a plan," Keene told the sheriff. Keene visited Claire every evening, reading aloud from her children's school newsletters, not because Claire could hear, but because Keene had learned that saying a family's names keeps them from becoming exhibits. On the 3rd night, Claire's hand twitched. "Reflex," the nurse said, but Keene leaned in anyway. "Claire," she whispered, "I'm Maura. I'm going to find who did this." Another twitch, a breath that sounded like a word refusing to be born. The lab ran luminol on the sedan's trunk, and stains bloomed under the blacklight, shifting the case from fear to certainty. A partial print from the cooler handle matched an old misdemeanor booking from 8 years prior on a man named Mitch Randall, the forklift neighbor. The scar on his right index finger matched the one on the print. He'd been seen at the feed store buying sacks. Keene went to his house with 2 uniforms. His garage smelled of solvent. A coil of twine lay on a shelf, and a cooler with a dented corner looked like a cousin to the one in the field. "We found some sacks like yours," Keene said conversationally. He denied everything. "Where were you night before last?" she asked. "In bed," he said too quickly. The nick on his shears matched the cut signature on the twine. That night, the hospital called. The nurse's voice held the skill of good news spoken carefully. "Detective, she's in there. We're getting purposeful responses. Come now." Keene ran red lights. In the dim room, Claire's eyes were half open. Keene sat and took her hand. "Claire," she said, "I need to know if the person who came to your door was a stranger." A deliberate blink. "Was it someone you knew?" A slow, deliberate blink. Claire's fingers tightened. Her mouth worked around a word. "2," she whispered. Then again, "sandpaper." Then, "2 knocks." Keene's hair lifted on her arms. It was the sound Mr. Lowry had heard, a routine, a habit, something practiced. But Claire was already sliding back into sleep. Back at the office, Keene pinned a fresh card to the center of the board. 2 knocks. Around it, threads connected Mitch Randall, Charles Pike, the repair shop owner with hands like sandpaper, and Daniel Cole. The case was no longer an empty room. It was a room with footsteps. Keene returned to the hospital. Claire could now squeeze a hand for yes and blink twice for no. Doctors cautioned against pushing her, but Keene sat with her hour after hour. "Did you know Mitch well?" she asked. A long pause, then a blink once. "Yes." "Did he ever come by your house before that night?" A slow blink twice. "No." Keene frowned. If he hadn't been a visitor, the 2 knocks were a signal. "Was it only Mitch?" Keene whispered. Silence. Then Claire lifted her hand just enough to tap 2 fingers weakly against the blanket. 2 taps. 2 men. The case split open. The other man could be Charles Pike. He'd bought sacks, and he lived just 2 miles from the abandoned sedan. The surveillance team watched him. 2 nights later, he drove out to a convenience store, bought nothing, and sat in his truck for 20 minutes before heading back. He was sweating, a man waiting for news. A tip came in, an anonymous voicemail. A man claimed he'd overheard Mitch bragging in a bar months before. "If you knock twice, she'll know it's me." The pieces began to fit. Forensics pulled new results from the trunk stains on the beige sedan. The blood matched Noah. Deputies swarmed Mitch's property and found a canvas tool bag buried under scrap wood. Inside was a hammer with black tape on the handle. Blood on the head was later confirmed to match Claire's. When Keene confronted Mitch in the interrogation room, she slid the photo of the hammer across the table. "Claire is waking up, and she remembers the 2 knocks." For the first time, his smirk faltered. "2 men were there," Keene pressed. Mitch's jaw clenched. He looked at the mirror on the wall, and for the first time in the interview, he stayed silent. That night, Claire stirred again. Her voice was like sandpaper dragged over stone, but a name was clear. "Charles," she whispered. "Charles Pike." By morning, Keene had him brought in. He sat across the table, recorder humming quietly. "You've been seen with Mitch Randall," Keene said calmly. Pike denied it, but his words came out brittle. "Is that what she told you? Lady wakes up from a coma and suddenly she's the Oracle of Delphi?" Keene just slid the evidence photo across the table. The sack with Sophie's bracelet charm tangled in the fibers. "You touched this. The lab will tell me when I ask. I just want to know if you want to tell me first." For the first time, his jaw shifted, a subtle grind of teeth. The case file grew heavier. Mitch, volatile. Pike, methodical. Together, they were more dangerous than either one alone. The breakthrough came from an old complaint in county records. 6 months earlier, Claire herself had processed a property dispute for Mitch Randall. He'd lost and stormed out, muttering about people who paid to play while others rotted. And in the witness notes, tucked in the margin, was the name, Charles Pike. Keene confronted Mitch again, armed with the new information. "You knocked twice," she said. "You knew she'd open, and Pike was with you." Mitch's eyes flashed. "He's not—" Mitch cut himself off. The cracks were widening. The search teams turned up a new lead, a drainage culvert near Pike's shop. Inside, they found another burlap sack holding fragments of cloth from Noah's soccer jersey. The lab confirmed it, blood consistent with Noah's. That night, Claire's voice was clearer than before. "Was it Mitch?" A nod. "And Charles?" A pause. Then slowly, "Yes." Tears slipped down her temples. They took them," she rasped. Her pulse spiked, but Keene had enough. She wrote the words in her notebook, underlined them twice. They took them. This was an abduction, planned, deliberate. Later that evening, Pike made his first mistake. The surveillance team watched him load his truck with something wrapped in a tarp and drive to the county dump. The next morning, they found shredded burlap, twine, and a child's shoe, Sophie's. Keene looked at his photo on the board, and for the first time she felt the weight of the truth pressing in. This was no random crime. This was planned, cold. The next step was clear: pit Mitch against Pike. But as she prepared the strategy, her phone buzzed. A nurse from the hospital, her voice frantic. "Detective Keene, you need to come now. Claire, she's asking for you. She says she remembers something else." Keene grabbed her coat, heart hammering. She drove fast, the night swallowing the road ahead. She knew whatever Claire had remembered would change everything, but she wasn't prepared for what she was about to hear. Claire's voice was faint, but steadier now. I remember." She described hearing the 2 knocks, thinking it was Mitch, and opening the door. "Mitch was there, and behind him, Charles," she whispered. "I remember the smell, grease, and the sound of their boots. They pushed past her, asking, 'Where is it? Where did he hide it?'" Keene frowned. "Hide what, Claire?" Claire shook her head weakly. "I didn't know what they meant. They thought my husband had left something. Money, maybe. They wouldn't believe her. Mitch hit her, and everything went black." Keene felt the words lodge in her chest. The hammer, the sacks, the planning. It hadn't been a random act of violence. It had been about something her husband had left behind. But what? And what had happened to her children? The search for answers continued, now fueled by a new, chilling truth.